How do you kill an army that cannot die? Imagine you're a Greek soldier at Thermopylae. You're exhausted. You shove your spear through a Persian chest. The man falls. You blink, wiping sweat from your eyes, and when you look back, he is standing there again. Same face, same armor, perfectly unharmed. You've seen the movies, right? The monsters in silver masks. Forget that, the truth is terrifyingly different. The Persian Immortals didn't use magic. They used something much colder. They used a human conveyor belt that history has never seen since. Here is the thing about the 10,000. That wasn't just a cool nickname, it was a strict military quota that could never be broken. Not by one man, not for 1 second. But have you ever stopped to think about the logistics of that? Seriously, how do you keep a unit at exactly 10,000 men in the middle of a war zone? If a guy gets sick, replaced. If he takes an arrow to the knee, replaced. If he just dies of old age on the march, replaced immediately. This is where it gets dark. To make the immortal myth work, the Persians had to treat their elite soldiers less like heroes and more like spare parts in a machine. See, behind the shiny front lines of the 10,000, there was a shadow army. We don't talk about them enough. These were the reserves. They marched right behind the main force, waiting. Just waiting. Their entire job was to watch for a gap in the line. The second an immortal went down, and I mean the second his knees hit the dirt, a reserve soldier would step over his body and fill the hole. To the enemy watching from a distance, it looked like a glitch in reality. You kill 5 men, but the line doesn't thin out. It doesn't wave. It just absorbs the death and keeps coming. That is psychological warfare on a level the Greeks weren't ready for. The Spartans fought for individual glory, right? They wanted you to know their names. The Immortals? They stripped that away. You became anonymous. You became a number. If you died, nobody on the other side would even know you were gone because your replacement looked exactly like you. But here is what blows my mind. The replacement system wasn't just about bodies on the battlefield. It was about lifestyle. You can't just throw a random peasant into an elite unit and expect him to perform. These replacements had to be trained from childhood, just like the starters. They had to know the drill. They had to know the silence. Did you know they were famous for marching in total silence? 10,000 men moving through the dust, and you couldn't hear a whisper. That requires insane discipline. And to keep that machine running, the supply train was staggering. We have records showing that the Immortals didn't eat hardtack and stale bread like the Greeks. No, they brought their own mobile food courts. They had caravans of camels carrying specialized food, prepared by exclusive chefs who only cooked for the Immortals. They even brought their wives and concubines along in covered carriages. Think about the arrogance of that. You're going to war, but you bring the comforts of the palace with you. It was a statement. It said, "We are so rich and so powerful that war isn't a hardship for us. It's a parade." But there is a crack in this perfection, a detail that usually gets left out of the history books. Even within the Immortals, there was a secret hierarchy. You might think all 10,000 were equal. They weren't. If you look closely at the carvings in Persepolis, you see it. Most of the Immortals had silver pomegranates on the bottom of their spears, but 1,000 of them, just 1,000, had pomegranates made of solid gold. These were the apple bearers, the king's personal guard, the elite of the elite. These guys were the ones who walked next to the king's chariot. They were the ones who held the line when everything else crumbled. And this is the part that really gets me. The replacement system applied to them too. Imagine the pressure. You are one of the golden 1,000. You are literally the best soldier in the known world. But you know that there is a guy with a silver spear standing 10 feet behind you, praying for you to trip. Because the only way he gets your gold spear is if you drop it. It created this hyper-competitive, cutthroat environment inside the unit. You couldn't show weakness, you couldn't limp, you couldn't cough. If you showed a sign of weakness, the machine would replace you before you even hit the ground. That's the tragedy of the Immortals. They were the most feared unit on Earth. They conquered empires, they burned Athens. But in the end, they were trapped by their own legend. They couldn't retreat because Immortals don't run. They couldn't show pain because Immortals don't bleed. They became prisoners of their own perfection. And when they finally met an enemy who didn't care about the myth, like the Spartans at Thermopylae or later Alexander the Great, the system broke. Because when you treat men like replaceable cogs, eventually, you run out of cogs. So, I have to ask you this. If you were a soldier back then, which side would you choose? Would you rather be a Spartan, fighting for your own name and glory, knowing you might die alone? Or would you rather be an immortal, living in luxury with the best armor and food, but knowing that the moment you fall, you'll be replaced and forgotten instantly? Let me know in the comments, glory or luxury? I'll see you down there.